Smart 90 Nonprofit Radio coverage of 18NTC, the Nonprofit Technology Conference, coming to you from New Orleans. This interview is sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. My guest is Stefanie Zasyatkina. She is director of InReach Solutions, and her workshop topic is When Process Blocks Progress, Workflow Efficiency for Nonprofits. Stefanie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Tony.
What was the need for this topic? Why do we have to talk about this? Why are workflows important?
So we are a small agency for case management system for nonprofits. We work in child welfare, and what we do a lot is implement the software with the agency, right?
Okay.
A lot of these agencies they struggle with understanding what they do. It's like you do it on a regular basis, but you don't necessarily know how to communicate it. So when you're putting it into a digital format, into a software, we actually have to know what you're doing in order to get the results that you're looking for out in reports and things like that.
Okay.
Right? And so if they can't communicate it clearly, it's hard to know where their pain points are, where to help them. And some people just aren't prepared for that, especially the small agencies. They don't have the staff on hand that have done kind of analysis of what their current processes are.
All right. So what do we need to help nonprofits do better then? What they need to better understand what their processes are.
They
Is
do.
that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely want to know
Okay.
be able to communicate where they're at to understand where they want to go.
Their processes, their workflow.
Their
We're
workflow,
talking about the
exactly.
stuff they do day to day.
Yes.
As you were describing.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. How do we help them do this? How do we help them? What are we looking first for the pain points, or are we just trying to understand what the flows are first?
Yeah, trying to understand what the flows are. The pain points often come out
emerge
in that.
from that.
Yep,
from that
absolutely. In
so-
that discussion.
Okay, so are we mapping the processes? How do we identify what our workflows are?
Yes. So it would be lovely to.
I'm not asking the right question, or what?
Yeah,
What? She's like stunned. Like, oh boy, I better say something. This is radio.
Just make sure. Do I understand what you're saying? Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, do we? Is that what we do? Do we map the workflows?
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of that comes out through a discussion of like, what do you do? It's not I don't want to phrase this. It oftentimes, people are so familiar with what they're doing that when they're talking, when I ask questions about it, they're actually not, they can't describe it. They're not actually sure sometimes. They don't have the right people in the room to make, they're not getting a full picture.
Yeah.
And so it involves a lot of people on the team and their different perspectives in order to get the full picture so that we know in the software, what are we planning to do for them? Like, do we want to automate some of the pieces? What are we trying to do to improve? They're coming to us for a reason.
Improve their processes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So often technology is blamed for problems when really it's the processes around the technology and maybe even some of the people that are the difficulties. It's not the technology.
No, it might be the technology. I
I'm saying
necessarily, but yes, sometimes it's
technology is erroneously blamed.
Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
absolutely,
That's
absolutely, because
Yeah.
they're not really sure what the process is and where either pain points are, or where maybe even where they're successful in something, and what do they want to continue to keep when they move to the next piece of software.
Okay,
right?
So this all relates down to efficiency, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we want to be more efficient, effective,
Right.
And we can only do that by being introspective about what it is we're doing.
And it's not even that everything is completely about efficiency. I mean, it's going to help with the bottom line and with staying in budget. But I think does your process actually reflect your mission is important as well. So there are definitely things where we've done internal processes for my organization that we've changed, and we're choosing not to make videos, let's say, to make things super efficient and not cost so much, because our mission is to empower organizations and to really partner with them and work with them. So we're actually we've chosen to speak live, with our clients And because we feel like that's really, really important, rather than sending them off to just support guides all the time, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right. So it's like you need both. Not only are you looking for efficiencies, which definitely is going to be a value for your organization, but
So it's
it's
mission-centric too.
mission-centric. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So if we do want to identify our workflows and then pain points that will emerge from that, what we have technology to, or is it? You said based on discussions. How do we start to work? How do we start to map our flows of information and work through the office?
So we actually, like in the workshop, what we're going to talk about is.
Oh, you haven't done yours yet.
No, it's
okay.
tomorrow.
Oh,
tomorrow at 3.
Your last day, so you're still.
Or
you're
at
still
1:30.
You're still thinking about it. You're still thinking, okay.
Always thinking about
some
this
people,
because
some people have already finished theirs.
Right.
You
Sure.
haven't yet. Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I've still got to go.
So you still have to be good tonight. Okay.
Last but not least.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good times.
So how do we get this started?
So the way that we like to do it, we've watched. There's this really excellent TED Talks by a man named Tom Wojcik.
Okay.
And he talks about taking a really simple process so that people understand why it's even important to do process mapping, and he does it with toast. Right, so something that we're all fairly familiar with is like, how do you make toast? Taking that, and so that's what within the workshop we're going to do is diagramming toast to get people all on the same page, that we understand that we're regularly building process, and then it's interesting because then every piece of every action item that you would do to move your process from step 1 to step Z.
Okay.
You will, you can sticky note it. And when we sticky note, then we have the ability to be flexible with our process.
All right, who's in the room when we're doing this? See, because listeners don't have the benefit of being at your workshop. That's why
Sure.
I'm here.
Yep, totally.
Expanding you to another 12,000 people who some of whom may be here, but not all of them, many, obviously. So they're not going to see your toast diagram.
Totally, yeah.
Your toast workflow.
But this is something that you can take.
Okay, all right. So we have sticky notes. Who belongs in the room when we start doing this?
Key stakeholders are in the room. So it can be executive level, but I think it's also the people who are literally doing the work. They need to be heard and understood because there may be points of the process
that nobody knows they're even
they don't
doing.
know that they're doing.
I'm taking information from Jessica and bringing that in, but how do you get that information? Well, I just call her up, or I send her an email and tell her that I need the info now for these 3 cases.
Right.
And
we have an
then later today I'll need some more.
Totally.
It's like totally informal, and the C-suite doesn't know that's going on.
Exactly. No, they don't know. We've had a client recently that walks
Not that I thought your
paper.
name is Jessica. I know your name is Stefanie.
Oh, yeah.
By the way,
Okay.
I don't know why I just thought of it.
I think
Jessica,
you're just pulling a random name anyways.
Yeah, okay, good. It was random. I didn't think your name was Jessica.
Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. No, so we have a client that literally walks from their office, paperwork, over to another office. They literally walk. So we're like, this is amazing. You're going to save 500 steps every day. You're going to have to find another way to get those steps in for your counters, whatever, but anyway.
Okay. So in the room, for your Fitbit, so in the room, we have a whiteboard, and we have Post-it notes, and we have all the stakeholders and all the people, instead of stakeholders, the people doing the work.
People doing the
and
work.
And then we also have senior staff. All right. And we're taking a process. Like how do we define a process?
So I like to think of it in sections. So don't think of it necessarily like top to bottom. Group it into like parts of the process. So make it understandable and relatable really quickly so that you can start to drill down into more complex processes, because a lot of times processes are nested, right? So during a licensing process, let's say, part of it is getting background checks, part of it is getting documentation, part of it is signing documentation, part of it is writing a home study, and then you're gonna take it up to the state. Okay, there's lots of different processes, and before we just say, okay, we do 1, 2, 3, that might be a good way to go about it, is just ordering what you can do. I like to section it so that it's more manageable chunks. That makes sense.
Okay, of course it does. And then put the chunks together.
Yes.
Then you'll see the whole top to bottom.
Right. Then you will see everything together, and because it becomes very overwhelming if you look at the whole process, right? And we work with adoption and foster care agencies. Licensing is one part of that process. So it's knowing when does licensing come in, What happens before, what happens after, but looking at one chunk at a time so that you can organize that.
Okay.
And then when you've got, okay, for step one of the licensing process is we send some email to a family. We then can use that on a sticky note and talk about that as like, how is that getting done? Is that sent through email? Are we mailing? Why would we mail versus send an email? And so you start to have discussions, and probably, like you said, executive level may not have any idea that actually paper mail is actually going out, and that all the packets are in different locations, or the documentation that needs to go in that packet might be, there's things that start to come to light that aren't necessarily known by everybody as the stakeholder, everybody who should be in the room.
Okay. And then after we've done our map of a process, what are well, you said a lot of conversations are going to emerge out of this, out of the mapping exercise, right? And so
sure.
pain points, my voice cracked, sorry, like I'm 14. Some pain points are going to emerge, and that's where we can maybe apply some technology to make things more efficient for us.
Certainly, yeah.
Or at least change the, or maybe the process even shouldn't change, but we need to understand why we're doing it this way. Is there a good reason for doing it this way? And is there a reason for not changing? I mean, that happens sometimes too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not that everything in your process needs to change. A lot of times you got where you are because your process is working. It's just there's some reason that drove you to need to look at your process, or like, here we are at this technology conference. A lot of times it is to adopt a new technology because something doesn't quite feel right. Yeah.
This white hair on my sweater. Can you believe this? I can't pull this thing off. There it is.
Happening.
It's so close. I have this white hair on my sweater. I can't get it off. I got it now. All right, because it's so close. I can't see it. Right. It's so close. You see it double, and I kept grabbing the fake one. All right, I got it. Little host digression. Okay, so there's more to say about this. I mean, so I know part of your presentation is going to be mapping toast, or the toast journey, but we're not going to do that here.
No, we're not going to do that.
But we still have another, 10 or 15 minutes together. So what more do small and mid-sized nonprofits need to know about the workflow process, so that they can scrutinize their own?
I mean, it's important. Going into it, it can be a difficult discussion. It is always important to bring in all the players, right? And really, even though we on the radio aren't doing that exercise, it is an excellent exercise to open up people's minds to that we all understand how to diagram.
Can we talk about it? Can we talk through the toast example, or do you?
Yeah, totally.
Does it have to be visual?
No, I don't think it has to be visual.
All right, so we're using this as an example of how to map your own workflow processes, right?
Yes,
right?
exactly. And
okay.
it's like an exercise that you can literally do this exercise with your team. So it feels kind of like, why would I do this? But it brings laughter, it brings cohesion, and it also brings an understanding of, we all see things from different perspectives. And when we actually talk about it and get it out in the open, we can see that and then improve our process. Because that might have been some of the problem, is that you don't actually know what other people are doing.
All right, I'm a little skeptical that Toast is going to bring all this out.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead, you're the facilitator. Get us started.
So the first part of the program, or the exercise, is going to be to actually diagram toast. With a piece of paper, and you are going to draw an image of how toast goes from, a piece of bread to toast, and whatever it might be. So for me, I use a toaster. In other countries, they use a sauté pan.
They do?
In Europe.
Make toast in a sauté pan?
Right. At the end of the toast, maybe you just want to eat it plain and dry. Maybe some people don't. Maybe they put butter on it. Maybe they put jelly. I did this presentation in California earlier. There was a gentleman from Australia. He puts Vegemite, right? It's like, what are the different people bringing?
Okay.
Some people look at these examples as very people-centric. Some people are very, very detailed. Some people keep it real simple.
Well, I mean, included in this, you have to go to the pantry or the refrigerator where you store your bread,
Right?
I mean, you got to get the substance first.
Some people may not remember that step. And what's interesting, I actually just spoke with a client who...
Is this very good that I thought of that step?
Absolutely.
Is that?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Oh, so sweet. Oh my God. Okay. Yes.
So I just spoke with a client who's actually used the example in her nonprofit setting, in the foster care agency she works with. And what she found was interesting is that she now knows kind of how people think, like how they think about what they're doing and what do they need, right? So she gave a really great example of one of the women needed all of the resources. Before I get started, I need to have the jelly, I need to have the toast, I need to have the plate, and right, whatever resources.
She's a planner.
She's a planner, and that opened her eyes to how to better communicate with that person, because not everybody comes at it that way. When I draw the toast, I get the plate in the middle. I also, like, we always joke about this, I'm like, I'm a single mom, so I'm like, doing the dishes. When the toast is down, I'm doing something else because I've got to be super efficient.
Okay.
Right?
All right. So there's other value in this too.
Yeah.
In terms of understanding people's work personalities.
Exactly.
All right. What we got to tease this out a little more.
Yeah, totally.
But I want value, not just not just filler. So what else? All right. So in terms of the what else have you learned from this?
Well, and so then step 2 is to then take all of these action items, make them into sticky notes, right?
So then the next step.
And so the point of the sticky notes is our brains actually work better with
what goes on the sticky notes?
all of the action items. All of the action items.
Like
So
walk to the refrigerator.
Walk to the refrigerator.
Pull out the bag.
Bring the knife out. Get the jelly. Get the bread. Push down the toaster, right? If you forget any of those steps, you have an opportunity to actually include them. You can also reorganize them. So if you find that it's more efficient to get the plate and the jelly and the toaster and the bread and all of these resources beforehand, you can move them from where I had them right in the middle or right up to the front, which means that you might need a pantry to store all these things, right? So, like, how can you make that part more efficient?
Sometimes your eyes roll the back of your head. It's unbelievable. Oh my God! You just did this twice.
I'm sorry.
When you're thinking.
When I'm thinking.
The first time I thought you were having a stroke.
No.
Okay, no.
Sorry.
Your eyes roll back and everything is white.
I do
It's all white.
I don't.
How
Just
do you do
recently
that?
started doing
No,
webinars.
it's not crossing, but it's like they're rolling back like a stroke. How do you do that?
I have no idea.
It's all white. Everything becomes white there. It's just eyelashes and white.
It's
No,
creepy.
you probably can't do it consciously, but
Probably
it's
not.
when you're thinking.
Yeah.
When you're thinking.
It's going real
First
deep.
time I let it go the first time I let it go, but the second time.
And now you're going to call it out.
right.
Thanks. And probably nobody noticed.
well,
now everybody's
well,
gonna
certainly not-
know
not
my
the
eyes turn white.
Certainly not the 12,000 podcast listeners. No, they definitely did not notice. Okay. All right, so we have fun here at Nonprofit Radio. I mean, because you're not going to have fun, then why the hell bother?
Why do
Why the
this?
hell bother? I mean, I dragged my ass all the way here. Oh, my God, I said ass. That might. I don't. All the way to New Orleans. I mean, we're going to have
It's a
some
great
fun.
city.
Okay, I know it is, but I wouldn't have been here if it weren't for NTC.
Me too.
I'd probably be on the beach in North Carolina where I live. Yeah. Anyway, okay, that's a host digression again. All right, so we're at the post-it note stage. Every little step. And then you can decide that you can reorder.
You can reorder.
Okay.
So Tom says that the ease with which we can reorder, it makes us more likely to improve the process, right? We're more willing to improve. We're willing to change things when it feels feasible and easy to do that. If it feels like, my team member created a diagram on some program, right? So it's got the arrows like PowerPoint or something, right?
Okay.
Like she's did all this work to make this process look like that. I'm less likely to go and tear up all her work. But sticky notes are real easy. They're real cheap. They're very budget friendly, obviously, for organizations. And this toast exercise really, again, just allows you to be free flowing with it. Part 3.
Okay.
Let's move on to part 3.
Okay.
Is then to take everybody's individual sticky notes and put them together. So now you're actually building cohesion. You're hearing actually what other people want.
So you're putting them up on the board and trying to rationalize them all into the same process.
Exactly.
But some people have some steps, and other people skip those steps. And
Totally. They might not plug in the toaster.
Yeah.
Well, nothing's going to happen if you press that down, right? And so it's like you can pull all the pieces. This is where someone is walking, the folder from one organization to another. you realize that you didn't realize that was actually happening before.
Yeah.
So you finally get to hear everybody's voice.
Okay. Is there a step 4?
No, well, so that's the exercise. But then the thing is yes, step 4, I guess, yes. Let me retract what I said.
Okay.
Yes, there is a step 4,
Yeah.
is to do this with your own processes, right? So to look at this really complex process, you need to organize it into smaller chunks that are more manageable, right? And then you can diagram it, you can sticky note it, you can work together and bring in what the program manager believes that the process is, and then the people who might actually be doing that process and hearing. Like I brought up this home study or the licensing process. There are certainly program managers that are approving. They might initiate part of the process. They are connecting that process with the case manager, with the social worker. All these people are coming together to make this process happen. There's also external factors like the state agency or where the background checks are being done, or the people who have to approve the home study. So there's all these people at play, and it really helps to bring a fuller circle, because the program manager might only be connected with the case manager and the social worker, but these people are connected to the state agencies. And where does the family come involved, right? So you're being able to see everybody clearly.
Very holistic. Okay. Now, in your own organizations, if you're not doing this kind of work, there may be processes that you're just not comfortable with. I mean, maybe even before you identify specific pain points, you just know that something's not right about the way we, I don't know, acknowledge and process donations and send acknowledgements.
Sure.
You know, there's something that it takes us too long. It feels like it's harder for us than it is for my friends in other organizations. So that might be a rationale for applying this process to that process. You know, applying this exercise to that process.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And really, I mean, Tony, you can also, I mean, we're always doing process. So I love this book. I might get the title a little bit wrong, but it's like the life-changing magic of tidying up. Okay. And she actually discusses process in our life. It's just like spring cleaning every year, but she organizes all of your items in your house into certain groups. Then you take out what's not needed. You hold it up, right? And so I've talked about the mission is like holding it up to you. Do I feel joy when I touch this item? If not, it's gone. It's no longer part of the process. So like part of the process, I guess, when you're combining and you're finding that cohesion with all your team members, is going back and aligning with your mission, and even the mission or the mission of whatever project you're working on, right? So if it is your donations and acknowledgments, you're wanting to get those out, making sure that aligns with how you run your organization, the values of your organization.
And how you value your donors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, because a lot of times donors are multifaceted in how they work with your organization. So they're not just offering funds to you. Like they might be board members, they might have been volunteers. Some of the agencies that we work with, they might have been families. So how are you touching all of these people who have multiple connections to your organization?
Yes. Okay. And I like how you bring it back to mission also. I mean, that mission.
It's so important.
It's whatever this process is that you're being really this is organizational introspection, right? I mean, this is the way I see it. You're taking a deep look at yourself as an organization. How do you work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I mean, like I said too, right? So I didn't want to throw in that book just because it felt really good. It's just like you would do spring cleaning annually. You've got to constantly go back to this. So sometimes your mission might be stale. Your people aren't feeling it. I mean, you just have a sense if you're in the organization. Someone
it's not that the mission is stale.
It could be. It could be. It could. There is potential for that, right? So it may or may not. One of the things certainly in the workshop that we're going to talk about is actually making people also relate to the mission. So just like the process of mapping out what your process is, making it possible so that your team actually feels the mission, that they relate to it, that it's not an abstract idea if it is a top-down or as you've added people into your organization. Over time, though, it could be.
Yes, you may have. Yeah, your mission may have become less relevant,
Totally.
or you may have strayed from it,
Yep.
diluted it, or it, the mission itself may require evaluation, rethinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very healthy exercise. We're going to leave it there.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
She is Stefanie Zasyatkina, and she's director of InReach Solutions. I said it right, didn't I?
Very close. Yes. You did great. Yeah.
Zasyatkina.
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 Yes.
Yeah, that's her. Okay. And my interview with her, with Stefanie, is sponsored by Network for Good, easy to use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. Thank you so much for being with Nonprofit Radio coverage of 18 NTC.